The late afternoon sun spilled through the half-open blinds, painting stripes of light across the living room floor. I sat on the edge of the couch, my mind tangled in a storm of nerves and anticipation. My name is Alex, a 22-year-old university student balancing classes, part-time work, and a life that, at first glance, seemed normal. But behind closed doors, my life was a delicate secret, one that had slowly become both a fascination and a challenge. Crossdressing wasn't new to me. It had started as a private curiosity, a quiet way to explore the side of myself that never fit into the rigid expectations of masculinity. At first, it was just about trying different clothes, experimenting with hairstyles, and seeing how makeup could transform not just my appearance but my confidence. Over time, it had evolved into something more profound, a release, a thrill, a form of self-expression that felt dangerously liberating. My parents had remarried in the past few years, and with their blending of families came my stepbrother, Ryan. Ryan was older, brash, and mischievous in a way that made life unpredictable. We had always had a complicated relationship. He teased relentlessly, pushed boundaries, and yet, underneath his arrogance, there was a strange sort of camaraderie. He knew about my private habits in ways I hadn't realized, and tonight, that knowledge would become the center of a dare I couldn't refuse. The mood in the house was tense, yet electric. Ryan had that grin, the one that made you simultaneously nervous and curious. "Alex," he had said earlier in the day, voice full of mischief, "I bet you won't survive the weekend without stepping fully into my challenge. I dare you to become my perfect little sister. Think you can pull it off?" The words had sent a shiver down my spine. My first reaction was shock, then hesitation, and finally an undeniable spark of intrigue. It wasn't just a dare, it was a challenge that touched the core of my secret desires. Could I truly transform, not just in private, but in a way that someone else could witness? And what would it mean if I succeeded or failed? I glanced around the living room, noting the details that had become familiar over the years. The worn couch where we'd spent countless hours arguing over trivial things, the bookshelf crammed with old novels and photo albums, and the small mirror by the hallway that had witnessed countless late-night experiments with makeup and clothing. Tonight, that mirror would become a silent accomplice, reflecting the transformation that Ryan had dared me to undertake. There was Emma, too, my girlfriend, my anchor in a world that often felt unpredictable. She knew parts of me that few others did, but even she hadn't seen the extent of my cross-dressing escapades. How would she react if she found out about this bet? Would she see it as a playful experiment, or as something shocking and confusing? The uncertainty gnawed at me, adding layers of tension to the challenge. As the sun dipped lower, painting the room in golden hues, I felt a mix of fear, excitement, and anticipation. Choosing the right outfit was crucial. It wasn't just about looking like a girl, it was about embodying the persona that Ryan envisioned. My fingers hovered over the collection I had kept hidden, carefully curated over months of experimentation: silky dresses, delicate blouses, skirts of every length, shoes that clicked with promise, and makeup palettes that had become tools of transformation. Finally, I settled on a pale pink dress, soft and flowing, delicate enough to evoke femininity, but not too extravagant. It was daring, yet subtle, just enough to make the transformation believable. The heels, a pair of white stilettos I had reserved for special occasions, completed the ensemble. As I slipped into the outfit, a thrill coursed through me, mingling with the underlying anxiety. Then came the makeup. The familiar ritual, now heightened by the stakes of the dare, became almost meditative. Foundation, contouring, eyeshadow, mascara, and lipstick. Each step transformed not just my face, but my entire presence. The reflection that stared back at me was both familiar and foreign, a version of Alex that few had ever glimpsed. The person in the mirror was delicate, radiant, and undeniably feminine, yet the nervous energy beneath the surface reminded me that this was still me, still vulnerable, still on the edge of exposure. Ryan had left for the evening, leaving me alone with the challenge. The house felt simultaneously safe and threatening, the quiet amplified by the tension coiling inside me. Every creak of the floor, every rustle of the blinds, seemed exaggerated, as if the walls themselves were aware of my precarious situation. I took a deep breath, steadying my racing thoughts. Tonight wasn't just about the bed, it was about testing limits, embracing transformation, and facing the delicate balance between thrill and fear. As I adjusted the wig, letting soft curls frame my face, I realized something profound. This wasn't just a dare or a game. It was an opportunity to explore a hidden part of myself, to embrace a version of Alex that had long existed in the shadows. And whether the outcome was triumph or embarrassment, excitement or fear, one thing was certain: my life would never feel the same again. The evening had only just begun, and the mirror reflected more than my appearance. It reflected possibility, risk, and the promise of transformation. Every step from this moment forward carried weight. Every glance, every movement, every decision would shape the night and perhaps even redefine who I was. The house was quiet, almost unnervingly so. Every tick of the clock seemed louder, each creak of the floorboards a warning. I stood in front of the mirror, studying my reflection. The dress I had chosen clung delicately to my frame, the pale pink fabric soft and flowing, highlighting the curves I rarely allowed anyone to see. The heels, though slightly unsteady under my weight, made me feel taller, elegant, and, in a strange way, powerful. But with that power came fear. Fear of being discovered, fear of messing up, and fear of stepping too far into a persona that wasn't fully mine. My fingers trembled slightly as I adjusted the wig, letting the soft curls settle naturally around my face. Makeup had always been a transformative ritual for me. Tonight, however, it carried a weight I had never felt before. Foundation smoothed over my skin, contouring defined my cheekbones and jawline. Eyeshadow highlighted my eyes, mascara lengthened my lashes, and a subtle blush brought warmth to my cheeks. Each step heightened the duality of my existence, the confident, radiant sister that Ryan dared me to become, and the nervous, uncertain Alex who feared exposure. I practiced walking in heels across the hardwood floor, the click of each step echoing in the empty house. My movements had to be graceful, believable, and consistent. Every sway of the hips, every tilt of the head, every shift in posture mattered. If I stumbled, even slightly, Ryan, or worse, Emma, might notice, and the dare would turn from playful to perilous in an instant. The internal conflict gnawed at me. Part of me relished the transformation, the thrill of exploring this hidden aspect of myself in a way that felt daring, intimate, and exhilarating. I imagined the playful smugness on Ryan's face when he saw me fully embrace the bet, the challenge I had accepted. And yet, another part of me quivered at the thought of being judged, rejected, or laughed at. This wasn't just a personal test, it was a performance, and the stakes felt higher because someone I knew intimately had set them. I moved to the wardrobe, where my selection of outfits awaited. Each piece had been carefully chosen over months of secret experimentation, each holding the promise of a different persona. Tonight's goal was perfection, not just in appearance, but in presence. I considered adding a delicate necklace, a pair of earrings that caught the light, and a bracelet to complete the ensemble. Accessories were more than decoration. They were tools of transformation, reinforcing the illusion and helping me inhabit the role fully. Once dressed, I lingered in front of the mirror, practicing expressions. A casual smile, a playful glance, a confident tilt of the head, each nuance was essential. The mirror reflected more than my appearance, it reflected my resolve. I had to embody the sister persona completely, at least for the duration of the dare. Half-hearted attempts would be easily spotted, and I couldn't afford that. The anticipation was electric, a mixture of excitement and dread that twisted in my stomach. Every sound in the house, from the subtle hum of the refrigerator to the distant chirping of birds outside, felt amplified. I imagined Ryan returning at any moment, expecting to find me fully transformed. The thought sent shivers down my spine. What if I wasn't convincing enough? What if my voice betrayed me, or my movements slipped into something recognizably male? To steady myself, I focused on the sensory details. The soft fabric of the dress against my skin, the slightly precarious balance on my heels, the scent of the perfume I had applied, a gentle floral note, helped anchor me in the experience. Transformation wasn't just about appearance. It was about inhabiting every detail, every sensation, every nuance that would make the persona believable. I practiced speaking softly, modulating my voice, testing different tones until I found one that felt both natural and feminine. It was awkward at first, but the more I spoke aloud, the more comfortable I became. My reflections seemed to approve, the image in the mirror smiling back at me with a confidence I could only hope to project to the world outside this room. Then came the challenge of posture and movement. I walked around the living room, lifted my chin, straightened my back, and allowed the natural sway of my hips to guide me. Each step, each gesture, each subtle movement reinforced the illusion. I caught myself in the mirror again, noting how different I appeared from my usual self, smaller, softer, more delicate. The thrill of this transformation was intoxicating, but it also amplified the stakes. One slip, one misstep, and the secret I had guarded so carefully could be exposed in an instant. My thoughts drifted to Emma. She had always been supportive of my quirks, my hobbies, and even my private experiments with crossdressing. But she had never seen me like this, not fully transformed, not as the sister that Ryan dared me to become. How would she react? Would she understand the thrill and liberation I felt, or would she be shocked, confused, or even disapproving? The uncertainty weighed heavily on me, mingling with the excitement of the dare. I practiced subtle interactions, imagining conversations, gestures, and scenarios. How would I respond if Ryan teased me further? What if he tried to push me into doing something more outrageous? Could I maintain the balance between playful compliance and authentic expression without losing myself in the role? Each hypothetical situation tightened the knot of tension in my chest, reminding me that tonight wasn't just a test of appearance, it was a test of emotional control and resilience. The suspense escalated when I heard the faint sound of footsteps approaching. Ryan could be back any moment. My pulse quickened. I smoothed the dress one last time, adjusted the wig, and took a deep breath. The room felt smaller, the walls closer, every shadow a potential threat. And yet, beneath the fear, a spark of exhilaration glimmered. I was stepping fully into a part of myself I had long kept hidden, daring to explore boundaries that few had ever seen. The final touch was a glance in the mirror. The reflection staring back at me was both mine and not mine, a delicate, radiant sister persona that held the promise of acceptance, intrigue, and perhaps even admiration. I took a deep breath, feeling the combined thrill and vulnerability of the moment. Tonight, the house would witness my transformation. Tonight, I would navigate the fine line between secrecy and revelation, thrill and fear, confidence and exposure. And as the footsteps grew louder, signaling Ryan's return, I realized the night's suspense was only beginning. Every step I took, every glance I made, every breath I drew would shape the events to come. The dare was no longer theoretical, it was real, immediate, and fraught with both risk and exhilaration. I was no longer just Alex. I was Ryan's sister, fully transformed and entirely vulnerable to discovery. The living room felt transformed, almost unrecognizable, bathed in the soft glow of evening light and the occasional flicker from the TV. Music hummed faintly in the background, a soundtrack to the storm of nerves and excitement that churned in my stomach. Every movement I made, every sway of my hips and the heels, felt magnified, each step an unspoken challenge to maintain the illusion that Ryan had dared me to embody. Ryan had returned home, his smirk as mischievous as ever, and he didn't waste a moment. "Well, look at you," he said, eyes scanning me from head to toe. "I wasn't sure you had it in you." His tone was teasing, yet underneath lay a hint of curiosity. Could I pull this off fully? Could I convince him, even for a night, that I was his perfect little sister? The stakes felt higher than any private experiment I had ever attempted. I smiled, trying to exude confidence. "Thanks," I said, voice lighter, higher, but still me, a careful balance. He circled me, observing, almost inspecting. Not bad," he finally said. "But can you keep it up if anyone else sees you?" That question tightened the knot in my chest. He wasn't just testing me. He was teasing the boundaries of exposure, putting my secret on a knife's edge. The first test came almost immediately. Our neighbor, Mrs. Patel, knocked on the door unexpectedly. Panic surged through me. Her footsteps were deliberate, her voice sharp yet polite as she greeted Ryan. "Hi, Ryan. Oh, hello." Her eyes widened as they landed on me. The sister persona had to withstand scrutiny, and my heart raced. I forced a casual wave, keeping the posture, the smile, the voice intact. "Hi, Mrs. Patel," I said, trying to make it sound effortless. Her gaze lingered a moment longer than comfortable, and I could feel the tension radiating from every muscle in my body. Ryan, sensing my anxiety, whispered, "Play it cool. You've got this." His words were both reassurance and reminder of the dare stakes. Once she left, I exhaled sharply, a rush of relief mingled with adrenaline. But there was no time to linger. Dinner was approaching, and with it, the possibility of our parents walking in at any moment. Each step, each laugh, each gesture I made had to be perfect. The thrill of being fully transformed was intoxicating, yet the fear of discovery added a sharp edge to every sensation. As the night wore on, Ryan introduced a new layer of challenge. He dared me to interact with a video call from a friend, someone who had no idea about my secret. The screen flickered to life, and I could see the friend's face, curiosity bright in their eyes. My palms sweated. The transformation wasn't just about clothing. It was about voice, mannerisms, and confidence. I had to embody the persona convincingly in every detail. I spoke carefully, laughing lightly, tilting my head, and gesturing delicately. The friend commented on how beautiful and convincing I looked, and a flush of triumph surged through me. I was navigating the dare perfectly, maintaining the persona, and even impressing others outside of the private challenge. Yet beneath the exhilaration, a persistent anxiety lingered. The secret remained fragile, like a glass sculpture teetering on the edge of a table. Then came the unexpected twist. The TV flickered with a news alert, a segment highlighting a campus event where a male student had recently embarrassed himself attempting a costume challenge. The parallel was uncanny. I froze, remembering that Ryan's dare had the potential for similar exposure. My fingers tightened on the edge of the couch, my pulse hammering. Every possible worst-case scenario flashed through my mind. Would someone recognize me? Could this be the moment where everything unraveled? The tension escalated further when my phone buzzed, a text from Emma. She was checking in, asking casually how the evening was going. My heart leapt. I had to respond carefully, maintaining the persona in text while hiding the underlying reality. My thumbs flew over the keyboard, crafting a reply that was playful, confident, and feminine, yet entirely safe. Her response was warm and curious, but she seemed none the wiser. Relief washed over me, mingled with a lingering thrill. I was living the duality, Alex and the sister, excitement and anxiety intertwined. But the climax reached its peak when Ryan suggested we take photos together, for memories of your transformation. Panic flared. I knew the photos could become proof, tangible evidence of my dare and my crossdressing, yet refusal would ruin the illusion. I nodded, forcing a smile, letting the persona guide me. The camera flashed, and I struck poses, each click a heartbeat of exhilaration, a small triumph over fear. The mirror behind us reflected both our faces, the playful grin of Ryan and my own delicate, radiant transformation. It was intoxicating, a visual proof of my success, yet the stakes had never felt higher. And then, the symbolic moment. The wig slipped slightly, a few curls falling awkwardly against my shoulder. My heart froze. Ryan's eyes flicked to it, a knowing smirk crossing his face. "Careful," he teased, and I felt a shiver of vulnerability. The illusion was delicate, and even the smallest slip could reveal everything. I quickly adjusted it, laughing lightly to cover my panic, but the thrill of near exposure coursed through me, electric and unforgettable. The final test came when our parents unexpectedly entered the room, carrying groceries. The atmosphere shifted instantly. I felt exposed, the persona fully tested under their gaze. Every word, every gesture, every posture had to be convincing. I smiled, greeted them softly, and engaged in casual conversation. The adrenaline surged, my palms damp, my heart pounding in my chest. Yet somehow I maintained the balance, the duality intact. I had become the sister in every visible way, navigating the emotional and physical challenge flawlessly. As the night wore on, the stakes remained high. Ryan continued to push playful boundaries, suggesting new scenarios and teasing interactions that kept me on edge. Each moment was a mix of triumph and tension, excitement and fear. I was fully immersed in the transformation, testing limits, exploring a side of myself I had long hidden, and surviving every close call. By the time the clock struck midnight, I felt exhausted but exhilarated. I had navigated every challenge, embraced the dare, and maintained the persona under scrutiny. Yet the underlying tension persisted. Every glance from Ryan, every message from Emma, every shadow in the room was a reminder that the secret remained precarious, fragile, and thrilling. The house had finally settled into a deceptive calm. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, each second a reminder that the night's tension was far from over. I sank onto the couch, trying to steady my racing heart, the soft fabric of the dress brushing against my legs like a gentle but constant reminder of the persona I had fully embraced. Ryan was lounging nearby, his smirk still playful, his eyes twinkling with mischief. He seemed satisfied, but I knew better. The night was only halfway done, and the potential for exposure lingered like a shadow over every corner of the room. I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror across the room. The reflection was almost unrecognizable. My makeup, the delicate pink blush, the mascara-lined eyes, and the carefully styled curls framed a face that looked almost ethereal. The dress hugged my frame in a way that accentuated the feminine silhouette I had painstakingly crafted. Every detail screamed transformation, every curve and gesture screaming that I had become someone else entirely, yet beneath it, I was still Alex, vulnerable and aware that one slip could destroy this delicate illusion. Ryan's phone buzzed suddenly, startling me. He glanced at it, and a slow, knowing smile spread across his face. "Looks like Emma's texting," he said casually, waving the phone in my direction. My pulse surged. Emma had been supportive, yes, but she had never seen me like this, not fully transformed, not playing the role Ryan had dared me to embody. I took a deep breath, grabbing the phone with trembling fingers. Her message was innocuous at first, asking how the evening was going, if I was okay, and mentioning she might drop by earlier than expected. Panic coursed through me. Earlier than expected could mean walking in while I was still fully dressed, heels on, makeup perfect, and completely in character. The thought made my chest tighten. I could feel the adrenaline spike in my veins, every nerve on high alert. I typed a quick, playful reply, keeping the persona intact while masking the underlying panic. My thumbs hovered over the screen before hitting send. The message was sent, but the seconds stretched on endlessly, each moment feeling like a countdown toward potential disaster. I glanced at Ryan, who seemed unusually calm, almost predatory in his amusement. The thrill and fear of the moment mingled into a heady, almost intoxicating cocktail of emotions. Then came the sound that made my heart stop entirely, the key in the front door. Emma was home. My body froze mid-motion, every muscle taut with anticipation. The sound of her footsteps approaching the living room seemed amplified, echoing in my ears. I could hear her humming softly, completely unaware of the transformation I had undergone, of a secret persona that had been daringly brought to life. Ryan leaned back on the couch, smirking. "Well, this is going to be interesting," he whispered. I felt my palms grow clammy, my legs trembling slightly from the combination of heels and sheer anxiety. Every instinct screamed to flee, to hide, but the dare had to be completed. I couldn't back down now. Not after everything. The door opened, and Emma's familiar voice filled the room. Hey, I'm home early. What's going on? My heart hammered against my chest as I straightened my posture, forcing a calm, feminine smile to my lips. The person who stepped into the room now was no longer Alex in jeans and a t-shirt. This was Ryan's perfect little sister, delicate, radiant, and convincing. Emma froze mid-step, her eyes widening slightly as they landed on me. I held my breath, trying to maintain the persona I had built painstakingly. The seconds stretched like hours. Every twitch of the heels, every shift in my stance, every nuance of my voice had to be flawless. The room was charged with tension so thick it felt almost tangible. Emma's expression softened slightly, but a flicker of confusion lingered in her gaze. "Alex, you look different," she said carefully, her voice tinged with curiosity and surprise. I swallowed hard, forcing a light, playful laugh. "Just trying something new?" I said, voice modulated to sound feminine yet casual. Ryan's smirk widened. "See? Told you he could pull it off," he whispered to me, leaning back and watching the drama unfold with amusement. My stomach twisted. Every word, every glance, every reaction from Emma was a test, a razor-edge balancing act between truth and illusion. Emma took a cautious step forward, tilting her head. I don't know what to say," she murmured, and I could hear the uncertainty in her tone. My heart raced. One wrong word, one unintended gesture, and the secret could shatter completely. And yet, a strange thrill surged within me, the exhilaration of being fully transformed, fully visible, and fully daring, even under the threat of exposure. And then, a sudden knock at the door. Another unexpected visitor. My pulse spiked. Ryan chuckled softly, clearly enjoying the tension. I felt trapped, the persona I had crafted teetering on the edge of discovery. Every possible outcome flashed in my mind: laughter, embarrassment, anger, shock. I was caught between exhilaration and fear, trapped in a thrilling but precarious moment. Emma's eyes darted to the door, then back to me. "Who could that be now?" she asked, voice cautious. I felt my palms sweat, my mind racing, heart pounding as I realized that my night of daring transformation was now facing its ultimate test. Would my secret be revealed? Could I maintain the persona under this new scrutiny? Or would everything collapse in a single, unavoidable moment? The room seemed to shrink, every sound amplified, every glance charged with suspense. I adjusted the wig, smoothed the dress, and straightened in the heels, preparing for whatever, or whoever, was behind that door. The reflection in the mirror across the room caught my eye, showing both faces, Alex and the sister, two halves of a precarious identity, poised on the brink of revelation. And just as Emma reached for the doorknob, the screen fades to black.